the first to know Nsem-Pii TV.
Memamo Akwaba by Nsem-Pii TV so. His Excellency John Dramani Mahama and any NDC Amanyoko ba bem 5 months yenyina yenim de omode judiciary no FM na nyina fa the removal of Chief Justice Torkonoo His Excellency John Dramani Mahama betu bia say we receive a petition seeking for the removal of Chief Justice Torkonoo enam so emanate 5-member committee committee no Justice Poamai and chair committee na other committee no ano omo investigated the petition seeking the removal of Chief Justice Torkonoo ene May 15th and penifo etna ase omo hwe nsem nyina emu na menemo ka say Center for Citizenship, Constitutional and Electoral System etwa so from CSOs asheki Supreme Court with an application to keep suspended Chief Justice Torkonoo in office. Now, we did not send back whom Sunday so almost say says Excellency John Dramani Mahama Ekaso ye Chief Justice Torkonoo F4 Amobil Fro Abetiki over while violating a key provision of the 1992 Constitution. Mujina Article 17(1)-3, Article 23, Article 296, and Article 146, 1-4 and 6. It's almost more catcher as Excellency John Dramani Mahama said. On me and for NCP precope any Chief Justice Torkonoo free ho na so yes animal and the oyano unconstitutional sebisebio eni na so bia enti omo kache Excellency John Dramani Mahama say omo ntina ho emane ma abem within 5 months oba ya o say oba be Chief Justice Torkonoo free ho amobi fro abetiki over Nsem-Pii na eboboba Nsem-Pii etifo Nsem-Pii for menemo ka say de committee 5-member committee omo hwe Chief Justice Torkonoo ni nsemu no Justice Poamai chair esa committee no menemo ka say de omatena se omo de nsem na etubia na ene lawyer na je ba fo awua enso de nsem na aba betubia na yenjebre yenti lawyer nsem a ono so de tubia efa committee na omo hwe nsem nyina emu no
if you look at so far our involvement in the process. We started by raising caution in terms of our approach. And then subsequently, we got to the stage of the suspension and we made known what we thought of it. The fact that there was some constitutional deficiency, which was a position subsequently also taken by the Ghana Bar Association, and there was so much controversy. We've gone past it. Now we find ourselves here. I have confidence that so far, given the composition of the committee, we hope to see justice being done. Except to say that we need to elevate the conversation to take a very nationalistic view, which is that for such processes, right, you need to look beyond the person involved, right? Very respectfully, for want of a better example, let's even say you have a Shylock involved, right?
You have a what involved?
You have a Shylock.
Oh, from Merchant of Venice.
Yes, you have a Shylock involved.
Right.
You still would want to see compliance with due process of law. And that is why at this stage, for instance, I would want us to look at this whole process and ask ourselves again that as a nation, the Constitution has sanctioned the an in-camera hearing. That is a secret proceedings, right? And we don't even know the procedure that will govern the hearing. Okay? And so it is something that we must ponder on. I'm saying that I have confidence in the personnel so far constituted. You have distinguished Supreme Court judges involved. The other persons I know very little about, that I have no reason to doubt their credibility. But for fairness, there ought to be predictability in the process. Where is the rules that govern it? I've heard, for instance, that in the case of Madame Charlotte Osei, the procedure was agreed upon at the stage of the hearing. What people fail to see, and that is why I'm highlighting.
My apologies. Let me seek clarity here. I have read documentation that points to, since you are talking of processes, I have read some documentation that points to the fact that she did not even get to see what her accusations were before, the point where shortly before or right at when she had to respond.
That is problematic.
To these accusations.
And that is problematic. It was problematic then, except to say that this time we know that, if what has been leaked into the public domain is anything to go by, then we would say that we know the persons who petitioned, right?
Yeah, but in this instance, a request was made. The presidency said they were in the course of doing that anyway, and they furnished the CJ with the petitions, right? But in that instance, so it appears she was barred totally from getting them.
Look, Benjamin, I haven't faulted it. I haven't faulted anything, right? And I'm not comparing the two to say that one is better than the other.
Right.
I am saying that if you look, for instance, the Electoral Commissioner, the appointment of the Electoral Commissioner doesn't even go through Parliament. You have the appointment of the Chief Justice going through Parliament. Okay? Now, unlike ministers of state, the judges and the Electoral Commissioner and the Chief Justice, their removal is provided for by the Constitution. I have stated previously that I believe that the removal was provided for in the Constitution to secure their independence, right? And indeed, also acknowledge the processes and the philosophy behind the process, right, for their appointment. Okay? Now, the point I am making is that let's make sure there is greater accountability in the removal processes by providing for a prior regulation to govern the proceedings, so that it is not a case that we have, something that we come up with as and when the situation occurs. That really, very respectfully, takes away predictability and makes it, a kangaroo-like process, which is not good.
And of course, we know how important precedent is as far as the law is concerned, and also reliability of what processes will culminate in, right?
Yes. Yes. That's all I'm saying. And I'm not blaming the government, because it is something that it came to meet. Okay? And so when you look at the Supreme Court case of Ejechu, for instance, they made recommendations as to what should be done, right? And I'm reliably informed that the previous Attorney General, the former Attorney General, Godfrey Dame, was in the process of putting together a regulation when the tenure of office of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo came to an end, right? I believe that going forward, that is very necessary. Otherwise, we personalize the whole proceeding and make it seem like the nation is the nation versus the Chief Justice, right? When it is supposed to be, it's the nation against the person occupying the office of Chief Justice. When it is supposed to be the office per se.
Right. But don't you think it's a missed opportunity? You see, some of these things, you can never tell. You can never tell how voters will go. And you speak about the former AG, Godfrey Adame, and some plans that could have been in the works. But the likes of Martin Kpebu, in recent months, when he's spoken about this, he also references the fact that back then, when he kept bringing this matter, that look, when it comes to the judiciary and some of these clauses, we have to take a second look at them people said he was only saying it for certain interests, and now it's coming back to bite the system, so to speak. Again, what do you think should be the way forward, especially as we have the likes of Kwesi Prempeh and a second bite at the constitutional review? What do you think can be done in the immediate term?
I think that, I'm going to be very frank with you. You know, there's something we need to appreciate as a people. There's nothing which is perfect from scratch.
Right.
I wasn't expecting a perfect constitution, but I was expecting a progressive society and a progressive Supreme Court that when it gets an opportunity to interpret some of these things, they will bring a more progressive perspective to it. For instance, I would dare say, and I want to be quoted right, that I think that on the issue of Article 146 of the Constitution, it is the Supreme Court of the Republic of Ghana that has disappointed us and not the framers of the Constitution. I have heard, for instance, Madame Sophia Ekufu, the former Chief Justice.
And I was about to reference her. Go ahead.
Yes, made comments about how lax that whole provision is. But you see, go to a place like the United States of America. They don't have a constitution which is as voluminous as ours. Okay? But it's supposed to be interpreted to give meaning and grow it. And that is why I constantly love to quote Sowa GSC when he says that the Constitution is a living organism. Okay? When the opportunity comes, there must be a very comprehensive interpretation, right, that would see growth. Okay? But when you look at Article 146 and the way the Supreme Court has approached it, I believe that in the future, when they should have the opportunity, they should take a very critical look at it again. Because you see, I've heard some commentators say, yes, a J2 came to resolve it. Yes, a J2 came to resolve it. Then the Supreme Court in the Terry case, right, wouldn't have come to say that they think that the prima facie should take a certain approach. You understand?
Right.
Go and look at the Ghana Attorney General versus Ghana Bar Association. A certain perspective was taken. When it came to a J2, they took a more, they took a step further from the Ghana Bar Association authority. Then in the Terry case, they didn't even say by way of ratio, but rather obita, right, in terms of what they think should be done as far as the prima facie determination is concerned.
Right.
That should tell you that when you take the three cases that I've just listed, right, not much of the comprehensive work was done by our Supreme Court in respect of Article 146 of the Constitution. That is why we are where we are today. All I am saying is that when cases come to our Supreme Court for determination, let the court very respectfully do a more thorough work by looking into the future and seeking to, do what we are, where we, by going along the lines of where we find ourselves today.
Right.
And let all politicians begin to look at things from a more nationalistic approach, right? Because, my brother, when we are in office for 4 years. Tomorrow, the people of Malaysia South may decide that I shouldn't be in office tomorrow. Tomorrow, touch wood, I may not be alive, but my children may be alive. Let's all begin to look at things from a more holistic and nationalistic perspective. And that is why I'm also recommending that the situation where, when issues relating to Article 146 comes up, and then we think it is okay for the committee to now come up with a procedure to regulate proceedings, for me, it is inappropriate. There ought to be a proper regulation, which we all know ahead of time, that will regulate the proceedings.
Right. It's interesting because it's just yesterday I was trying to find the article. I was reading something about the Supreme Court the Chief Justice of the United States, and some wranglings in there, even on the back of Trump's actions when it comes to institutions of higher learning. There have been some concerns taken to the courts and all of that. Even there, where there are 9 members and it's not a perfect system. There's no perfect system anywhere, like you rightly mentioned. But just before I get to your expectations of the process, it's in camera. We are not going to get to know what is going to happen against the wishes of some people who said, she should opt for it, but the Constitution is clear that it should be in camera. I've heard the likes of Sophia Kufu speak. She says she's not speaking against the administration, but of course there are certain things and changes that ought to happen. A former director, Mr. Asare of the Ghana School of Law, has spoken. He thinks there are issues, questions that need answers from the Chief Justice as suspended. I've spoken to a former president of the Ghana Bar Association who thinks saying there is Justice Atuguba, as you well know, recently retired, who has also spoken to the issues. When it comes to the panel, their sittings, what can we expect? And what are your expectations, basically?
I know, I hope they will do justice, not by Madam Sophia Kufu, but justice by the people of the Republic of Ghana.
You say hope. Do you trust they will? I mean, the members of the panel. Do you trust they will?
I have no reason to doubt them.
You have no reason
to doubt them.
All right. Well, maybe just a final bit in there before I bring in a final issue. What would you want to see as part of the process? Though we can't see the process, but in the end, what would convince you that that process has been free, fair, transparent? What are some of the signs you would want to see?
It is very difficult to say what you would want to see in terms of the process, because the process is in camera, so there's nothing I can see as far as the process is concerned. But in the end, I would want to see a very reasoned decision, right, being made public, because even if the proceedings is in camera, I believe that the decision should be made public. Because, again, the Chief Justice went through a certain procedure in terms of a certain process in terms of her appointment that involved the representatives of the people of the Republic of Ghana.
Right.
Okay. And she's been removed, right, in a constitutionally sanctioned procedure which doesn't involve the representatives of the Republic of Ghana.
Right.
The people themselves would therefore not get to see or participate in the process, either directly by watching what goes on, and their representatives are far removed also from it. The only way they will be able to tell whether what transpired was fair or not is a reasoned decision that will be for public record.
Right.
And so I think that is very necessary.
Okay. The final bit, though, I just want to run by you because it's become topical on different fronts. The CEO of Goldboard, Sami Nsem-Pii, whom the acting CEO, I should say, whom there was this accusation against in respect of giving some money out to Mama Pat, Nana Agrada. There are many who have come to his defense and spoken about his character as an individual and how this was just, a blip. We've also heard from the presidency saying that he's been given a stern warning, which is part of the code of conduct as per the presidency in recent times, and that he should go and sin no more. What's your quick reaction to that?
Ordinarily, because you had not told me this was part of the issues we're going to discuss, I wouldn't have commented on it. But I'll tell you something. Ordinarily, I wouldn't, but this one I'll tell you something.